By the end of 2030, there might be 100 to 110 million EVs on the road globally, and to cater to their energy demands, EVs charging infrastructure needs to be strengthened. In the next session, Sandeep Bangia, Business Head EV Charging Ecosystem, Home Automation, ESCO Tata Power, will share his presentation on EV charging, trends, and road ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandeep Bangia. I look after the EV charging business apart from other verticals at Tata Power. And it is my pleasure to be a part of this prestigious ET conclave amongst legends who have presented so far and are going to present their sessions further ahead. I'm just going to give you my view of things, our company's view of things, how we believe this ecosystem is going to evolve, and how we think the preparedness of the company and of the country is when it comes to EV charging. So I'll just take this opportunity to tell about my company. Most of you know the company as a 100-plus-year-old company in the business of power generation, transmission, distribution, and hence when electric vehicles were being discussed, I think this was a very logical extension of the company's expertise that comes into the EV charging business. And we have got into this EV charging business for about a year plus, and we have done fairly well as yet. And I'll just share with you some of the thoughts that we have about what we intend to do going forward. We have taken a lot of the distribution businesses in the last few months, and we have got retail customers of over 10 millions. This is the direct relationships with our company, and we intend to take it much ahead with the EV charging business. Coming back straight to EV charging business, I think while it's not fair to say so, but EV charging business or EV business has been helped in large measures by COVID. People have seen the benefits of almost zero tailpipe emissions during a lockdown versus very few vehicles flying. We have never seen air quality index of about 30, 40 in a city like Mumbai and Delhi, and we will possibly never see it all anytime again. Uh, but this is possible in very large measure if we eliminate tailpipe emissions. Elimination is a dream, pipe dream, but we can get there very fast. We can evangelize this ecosystem when it comes to electric vehicles. The other big thing is, as other speakers have said, the electric vehicles have entered the national narrative. They are a part of the living room conversations. People have started talking about electric vehicles, its benefits, whether it is scooter, whether it is auto rickshaws, whether it is cars, and whether it is buses. I think that discussion is what is important, and it's only a first step. Once this discussion happens, once there is this media space that is occupied by electric vehicles, and that is the time that we know that the inflection point is just around the corner. Globally, we have seen that every week almost there is a new car launched. And why globally? In fact, in India, there have been huge number of announcements over the last few months of new car launches uh, in various segments. And finally, we are seeing success. When I say we are seeing success, there is a lot of anxiety and there is a lot of inquisitiveness about electric vehicle charging, electric vehicles, and people do approach us. Can you put EV charger here? Can you put EV chargers? Can you offer franchisee for EV charging business? I think that discussion is what is important, and we are seeing success, which I will share with you some as we go ahead. So EV charging, to my mind, comprises of very clearly three domains. The first one is obviously the charger itself, the hardware, and the topic of my presentation would be the key trends. We are talking about the trends which are emerging globally are ultra rapid chargers, wireless charger, renewable power charging, which means there is a solar panel connected to a charger and the entire piece is clean energy which is going into the car. So no pollution nowhere whatsoever. a consistent form factor for battery swapping, and integrated hardware. I think these are the key things that you look at when there is a progress, when somebody talks about the charger hardware. There is another discussion that keeps happening. People do keep asking me that, do we want to install 150 kilowatt charger? Do we want to install 350 kilowatt charger? This is the kind of things that they have read somewhere in the world. Is there a way that you will be able to get a car to be charged in about 5 minutes, the way you are used to in a petrol car? But to them, I think my answer is very simply just this picture and a very small suggestion of a mindset change, which is not easy because it comes from a 100-year-old automobile industry, which tells us that you go to a petrol pump and you fuel your car and fuel your scooter, and there you go. So the mindset change that we are suggesting here, and which is slowly is happening, people are understanding, is that in case of IC engines, petrol diesel engines, the entire ecosystem is centralized, which means I have to go around the corner to take my petrol. It takes me about 5 to 7 minutes to go there. It takes 5 to 7 minutes to refuel the car, and then same thing to come back. Overall, a matter of 15-20 minutes. But what electric vehicle charging is all about: distributed refueling. When I say distributed, uh, in an electric vehicle, you would typically have a charger at your house. The charger will be there at your workplace. The charger will be there at your mall. The charger will be there at your, let's say, supermarket. So essentially, when you have a charger at your home, it's like almost your private petrol pump, and you don't have to go anywhere to do the refueling or recharging. When you come back home from work, you just put your car on charging, and in the morning it's fully charged. So you continue to do what you are doing in any case, and this is what I mean by centralized versus distributed. You will continue to do exactly what you are doing while you are at home, you are sleeping. While you are at office, you are working, the car is getting charged at your workplace. And when you are going to watch a movie, you are there in a mall in which the car is getting charged. Of course, this is something that we have not yet reached there, but this is a promise that we have, and this is a promise of the ecosystem, not just Tata Power. And this is something that I'm going to show you how we are working and the approach that we are taking to do this. And this is the difference, and this is the mindset change that is being suggested worldwide. About 75 to 80% of the cars don't even go to a public charger. They charge at home, they charge at their workplace, and you can think of it as an equivalent of a mobile. You don't go anywhere to charge. You just do what you're doing, and then the mobile continues to charge itself. And when you are moving out, then you remove it from the charger. I think that's the mindset change that is being suggested. Slowly, it's happening. It's not easy, but it's happening. I move on to the second pillar of electric vehicle charging, which is the platform. And I always say this, the electric vehicle charging is not just about charger. A charger is a piece of hardware which is an electrical/electronic device which can be easily installed. I think the big differentiator is the platform. The platform is something that helps you interact with the car and the charger. It allows you to make payments for the power that you're consuming. Now, this is something that we believe is likely to be the differentiator as we go along. And this is something that, as a company, we are investing hugely. And we believe that this platform, when it is fully ready, currently we are at release 2, when it is fully ready, maybe in some time, this is not just going to be the best in India. I'll hazard that this is likely to be the global, it's a world-class kind of a platform that we are able to offer. Uh, the kind of tariff flexibility, the volume scalability, the multiple payment options, that's the easier bit, and a very high level of high quality consumer centric UI. I think that's where the investment is being made. I'm just going to touch upon that in the next maybe 1 or 2 slides to tell you about how this differentiation is going to look like. Now, this is an application in the hands of a customer, not just the retail customer. This can be put in the hands of fleet managers. This can be put in the hands of corporate administration folks. This can be put in the hands of airport fleets and those kind of things, for a complete understanding and analytics of the usage, the number of kilometers, the efficiency, and the whole lot, because these are all connected, and these are all things which can give out information which can be very strongly analyzed. So at the base level, we have RFID management, user management, and the whole host of things which I won't read out. We have things like very futuristic things like an icing, or what we call as, if there is a car that is a petrol car that is parked on a place which is meant for electric vehicle charging. I think we have a solution to that as well. So this is something that is not yet come in, but wait for it, and we'll be able to offer something interesting there. The third part, I talked about the hardware piece, I talked about the platform piece, and the third part is the grid expertise, which is the domain expertise. And the way I say it is, there is a charger, which is physically the device. There is something which is on top of it, which is a platform which runs it. And there is something which is behind it, which is the grid. And the expertise on the grid is something that we possess in very large measures. This is something that we are very clearly having a very high credibility on the management of grid. Uh, if there are so many cars that come in, I think there is likely to be a expertise on the management of the grid part, which is likely to make a big play into how a charge point operator will be able to function. Now, this is where the expertise of Tata Power comes in again. Uh, we are on the supply side, we are on the demand side, we are on the grid, and our people are, I would say, established experts, global experts, let's say, in grid management and grid balancing. This is something that not many people can take away from us. So the way these things would work is, nobody with a great amount of hardware expertise, nobody with great amount of electrical expertise, and nobody with electrical expertise would be able to function. The important part is it has to work in confluence. All three have to work in absolute equal measures to ensure that the charge point operator's functionality is absolutely to the ball. Now, this is where we come in. The platform is something that we are investing heavily in. The hardware and the domain expertise is something that we possess by default, being a power utility and in-house expertise. So this is something that when I say about the trends and how things are moving broadly in the direction of electric vehicle charging. I just want to talk about a few enablers here and a few bummers, if I were to say so. We have Mr. Amitabh Kant also from the, and we have got people from Delhi government also on the conclave. I think all of the government initiatives are absolutely brilliant. Uh, the central government pushing and the state governments very excitedly adopting EV policies and releasing policy notes which are very friendly to the customers, to the ecosystem, and the kind of things that they're doing are pretty much make us believe that this is an ecosystem which is set to grow very strongly. There is something that we need to look at, which is just putting it's a bummer, as I mentioned. It's a showstopper to some extent. The CCS versus CHAdeMO versus GBYT. Currently, the standards in India are not yet fully established. There are vehicles from CCS, there are vehicles in GBYT, but the way we see it, I think sooner we establish a very clear standard, the better it is. Of course, the world is directly moving towards CCS standards, and for scooters and three-wheelers, it's an AC001 equivalent. But for cars, it's good if the government establishes a standard which will help us expand the ecosystem, or which will help us expand the number of public chargers without any hesitation. So what do we do very quickly? We are into this space of entire home charging, workplace charging, captive, and the whole host of stuff. When you buy an electric vehicle, people like us get information from the vehicle dealership or the vehicle company, and we install chargers at your home before your car is delivered. And similarly, our people very are keen to install EV chargers at your workplace, if it's an exclusive building or even if it's a commercial complex, and similar. We do that for a lot of organizations. So the clear understanding is that the more chargers that are visible, more is the ecosystem likely to flourish. So if I am seeing a charger installed near my office, there is a good chance that I will consider buying an electric car for as my next purchase. And that is likely to fuel the ecosystem. And we are doing a lot of these. So we have currently about 400 plus chargers installed and in India, and there are about similar number from all the other operators put together, including the government operators. So we are possibly the largest charge point operator in the country as it stands. We have very clear tie-ups and arrangements with Jaguar Land Rover, MG Motor, Tata Motors for their cars, and more such discussions are underway. And this is something that we do for the captive, which is fleets, and of course the battery swapping stations as well. Just to show you a very simple example of the kind of things that we do, uh, we are doing it for BST in Mumbai. We did the entire power infrastructure, which is the transformer, the discom infrastructure, civil infrastructure, and the chargers, to ensure that the buses, electric buses that you see on the rolling on the streets of Mumbai, that is entirely powered by the Tata Power ecosystem, and we are very proud of that piece. So, what is the things that we are looking forward to? I think very clearly there are 6 or 7 uh, focus areas that we have identified, mainly for public charging. Of course, we are talking to all the auto manufacturers for their home charging as well as their dealership charging. But we are also in the business of setting up public chargers, which are 400 in number, as I mentioned. The clear focus is the highways. When a person requires a public charger, mainly is when he is on the highway. Because when he is in the city, to and fro, whatever the distance he is covering, he is able to finish his journey time during the course of the day, and his full charge takes care of the entire route. But he needs a public charger when he has to go from, let us say, Mumbai to Ahmedabad, Delhi to Chandigarh. Now, those are the kind of places that we are trying to cover for with our high-speed rapid chargers. More importantly, we are trying to put those chargers at logical pit stops. Let's say if you are traveling from Mumbai to Ahmedabad, then you would want to take a break at Surat, you want to take a break at, let's say, Baroda, and that those are the kind of places that we are putting up chargers. So while the vehicle is getting charged, you can take a quick bio break or a, let's say, take a quick snack and stuff like that. And by the time you are back, the vehicle is almost fully charged. And that's the kind of ecosystem that we are trying to promote, mainly for highways. Similarly, for hotels, when you travel from, let's say, Mumbai to Delhi, you would want to take a halt at, let's say, Jaipur or Ahmedabad. Uh, Hotels are the very key places in which the cars get parked overnights, and hence we are also putting up chargers at hotels. Workplaces, as I mentioned, similarly, tourist destination. People do not go from point A to point B, normally from one city to other city for driving, but they normally go to a destination. Mumbai people go to Shirdi, Mumbai people go to Nasik, Delhi people go to Jaipur, Delhi people go to, let's say, Masuri. So we are trying to put chargers in those tourist destinations. And similarly, in within cities, malls and shopping areas like department stores, coffee shops, those are the kind of places that we are putting up our chargers, so that while you are doing your shopping and while you are watching a movie, your car is getting charged. Remember, I mentioned you will continue to do what you are doing while the car is getting charged. You don't have to do anything specifically. and similarly for residential welfare associations, which is large residential societies. These are the kind of places that we are focusing on for our public charging. We have a very strong backing of the group. These are the kind of businesses that own locations or properties which are accessible in some measures to us for putting up our charging stations. And these are also the places where people go and spend a good amount of time, whether it is hotels, which is Taj, Starbucks, coffee, hotels, again, West Side is a department store. So people do spend a good amount of time there, and it is very logical that while you are spending time at a coffee shop or at West Side or at a Chroma, let us say, your vehicle gets charged. I think this is something that is a very clear synergy that we are trying to get from the group parent. Of course, power of pan-India presence. We have over about 60 cities where we have got our chargers, those 400 chargers I mentioned about. This does not count the uh, over 2,000 chargers that we have installed in people's homes, people who have bought cars and we have installed in their homes. So before I come to the next bit, I think it is just useful to summarize the discussion so far. I talked about the three key pillars of EV charging: the hardware, the platform, and the domain expertise. The kind of challenges that we would be facing when we are trying to get locations for putting up chargers along the highways. I talked about the battle for standards. This is a long road to the business case. I think this is a big challenge that we all are facing. Uh, Currently, we are trying to evangelize the ecosystem to ensure that the vehicles come into the country, and we are seeing this happening as well. If you believe what the gentleman who's been saying since morning, we will likely to get about 30% of the vehicles converted to electric by about 2000, as early as 2024. We also have some discom licensing challenges, but that's something that we are trying to deal with. So we, as in Tata Power, without talking about just the EV charging, apart from generation, transmission, distribution, I think related to electric vehicle charging, this is something that we are doing. Very importantly, vehicle to grid. This is a standards that are emerging, and when you have a vehicle which has been charged to the brim, there is something that you can do and give the charge back to the grid whenever you need it. I think there are lots of use cases that are emerging. Whenever such use cases emerge, I think we are the first ones to possibly latch onto this one. And the second part is the second life of battery. For a car, the useful life is, let's say, 7, 8, 10 years, as much as the car survives. But the battery is useful much after that. Now that is the time when we take the battery and use it in the grid as a part of our overall main Tata Power business in the context of power and energy storage. Now we are actually doing some work with, let's say, MG Motor in this case, to deal with the second life of battery for them. Very progressive thought, and this is something that we are collaborating with them to make some substantial gains. And finally, being the end-to-end power company, I think there is something that we can do to ensure that the entire ecosystem or entire value chain is sustainable, from the solar generation, wind generation, right to the gun of the electric car charger. So finally, here is what the goal is that we are dealing with. We wish to be the best. So far, we believe we are the best. We wish to be the largest. We are undisputed so far the largest in India on the charging network. We wish to spur the ecosystem. We're very keen that the ecosystem gets spurred so that when people see the chargers, they're tempted to buy an electric car. And there are other Tata Group companies which are in the business of electric vehicles, components, and batteries. So we are wanting to very clearly spur the ecosystem, and finally invest ahead of time without really looking at immediate gains of the business case and stuff. So this is something that we are doing as a very clear, whether it is mandate or call it an intention, to make this thing happen. And what we intend to do and what we are doing on the ground is something that is there for all to see. This is something that I had to share. and I'll be very open to questions here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bangia, for sharing a precise presentation on EV charging. Let's proceed to the next session. Stay tuned.